In the last video, I talked about how dropping the low frequency resonance allows for better soundproofing overall, and how resiliently mounting the wall leaves on one or both sides of the structural members helps to decouple one side from the other, while at the same time making the wall more flexible, which helps to lower the frequency of the wall's fundamental resonance even more. But before I move on, I need to mention the importance of acoustical caulking. Especially for resiliently mounted wallboard, a very flexible caulking is needed to seal up the corner edges of the wallboard where the walls, subfloor, and ceiling meet. The wallboard should not be touching at the corner edges, but have a gap of 1/4 of an inch or so, which is filled with acoustic caulking. This allows the walls to stay flexible all the way to the edge, while being nice and sealed up at the same time. Do not mud and tape at the corner edges after caulking them. Only mud and tape at the edges of the panels attached at the same wall plane. Acoustic caulking is paintable, so just apply the caulking, smooth it out, and paint it after it cures. Also, make sure to caulk around switches and outlets. Butyl rubber caulking is the next best thing, and is cheaper if you can't do acoustic caulking. The same company that makes Quiet Glue Pro also makes a product called Quiet Putty. This stuff is basically a putty pad that can be used to completely cover and seal the backside of outlets, wire and all, and make them completely airtight. You don't have to use this stuff though, it's kind of a luxury, and you can make the outlets airtight enough with caulking. And you'll probably want to caulk the outlets anyway, even if you don't use the putty pad. The thing that's useful about the pads is that they add thickness to the plastic outlet boxes so that less noise travels through them. Also, the putty will not hold a vibration. A final note about the outlets is that they should be placed a good distance apart from each other, not one directly behind another, but as far away as you can put them. Back on point, the best way to lower the wall's resonance is to increase the depth of the air cavity. The logic is fairly straightforward. The thicker the air cavity, the longer the wavelengths must be in order to create the fundamental resonance. Longer wavelength means the same thing as lower in frequency. The way to do this is, unfortunately, to double the amount of studs or joists in the walls and or ceilings. This allows the two wall leaves to be supported by their own individual networks of studs or joists. A common way to do this is with staggered studs and staggered joists. Floor joists are usually wide enough to create a pretty good sized air cavity, though walls with staggered studs are usually built with a thinner cavity. A common way to do staggered studs is by alternating 2x4s on 2x6 sill plates, with the soundproofing benefit being about the same as using resiliently mounted wallboard with hat channeling clips. More effective than either of those two methods is the use of a double stud wall. This wall construction also utilizes 2 separate rows of studs for each wall leaf, with the amount of studs used in this wall being essentially the same as used in a staggered stud wall, but the difference is that the stud rows are mounted on their own separate top and bottom sills. This allows the wall to be as deep as you want it to be without the addition of more lumber. Of course, the trade-off is less floor space. Just the same, adding a few more inches of wall depth will probably go unnoticed in a decent-sized room, and the soundproofing benefit is drastically improved, given that the wall is decoupled. A single stud 2x6 wall will not hardly be any better than a single stud 2x4 wall. At any rate, though, after adding 4 inches to my 14x12 foot bedroom, the room looks a bit smaller, but there was no noticeable change in terms of storage space and walking room. By the way, building double walls with staggered joists or utilizing resiliently mounted wallboard, if used all around the room from top to bottom, will fit the criteria for what's called a room within a room. The pinnacle of soundproofing would require the exterior of a building to be self-supporting, as well as supporting the roof and resisting shear forces, while at the same time not utilizing interior walls to help with that. The interior walls would be completely separated from the exterior, and each room would have their own walls supporting their own ceilings, supported on their own separate floor joists, and attached to separate foundations, such that the structures are not fastened to one another at any rigid point. Alas, this is generally unfeasible due to cost considerations, among other reasons, though there are alternatives which can cost about the same amount of money as a traditional build while still having excellent benefits.